just on channel 38 there. You could see what was going on, I think. Not much. Today, yeah, I wanted to, I was talking to Cousin Glen and wanted to meet you to do a few things and address a few issues and that I have, or something with my, or anything that I have with my radio system. And I'm doing pretty good. There's nothing really to address. I'm kind of happy. I don't really want to disturb anything right now. It's early in the game and we're doing good. But the one thing I really wanted to talk about last year, and I don't think I really got into it enough, was I wanted to talk about amplifiers, linear amplifiers, power amps, kickers. Can I use the word kickers? And everybody will know what I'm talking about. Right? Well, we used to say I got my boots on back in the 90s and 80s. Or I got one boot on, which meant that you were running at half power. Amplifiers are very important. But there's, everybody thinks, okay, an amplifier, I've got an amplifier. I've got something like, this or that, and we'll show these, and, or I'm going out and I'm going to get me an amp. Okay, that's cool. But there's some things you really need to think about before you buy an amp. There's other things you're going to need and you have to check. First off, I wanted to emphasize something that anybody that knows me well enough, or even a little, about radios, sooner or later you will hear me say, don't buy used linear amplifiers ever. Never, ever. I don't care who it is to you. Don't buy them. They want to give it to you, smile and take it. And when you're testing something like that, use your bum radio. I got a few. They run fine, but if something goes wrong. But do not buy used amps. The bigger the amp, the more you don't want to buy it. And there's people that are going to say right now, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. He must miss good deals. Oh yeah, maybe you did get a good one, huh? You got an old Texas Star or something like this or that. Yeah, keep buying them. See how many. After you get 3 or 4 of them used ones, let me know how many of them really work. Don't buy them unless you know how to repair them. And even then, you got to look at the monetary value. So I know so many people that have bought over the past 5 years, say, Texas Star amps, which were great amps in the day, but they're older now. And there's things that go wrong with amps. Tube amps, I do have some. And I have one right here. We'll talk about that later. Number one rule, this would be like in the military. I would make everybody repeat it. Do not buy used amps ever. Never. And I won't sell them. I might give it to somebody if I'm done with it, or it's not working out for me what I need, or but no. Save your money. Save your money. So I wanted to cover that first. So let's talk about an amp. What does it take? A power amp. A kicker. What does it take to run a kicker? Depends on what you're running. How much do you really need? That's the next. One of the most important things there is, how much power do you really need? And I've been over the years past, let's say 3 or 4 years especially, there's a lot of people that first met me and went, now this guy's up to something. There's no way he's talking all the way into the UK. I listen to him talking to Germany, Denmark. You pick something, pick somewhere. I've talked there. And I'm not running a lot of power. In my opinion, no. But you have to take what I was taught in school, summer school especially. I did this for 4 summers, starting I think from the time I was 10, 9 or 10, and I took electronics classes, and our teacher, Mr. Mayer, who was a great guy, and he was a friend of mine all the way through school, high school, everything. But anyway, he was a very radio smart guy, of course, and we built projects. But the one thing we talk CB and ham radio in the class, and he would always say, okay, with these CBs you all are running, you don't have licenses, your dad's got one, it's legal, you got to behave, we'd get the whole, and we were getting a ham class at the same time, in my opinion, the first tech class, and so the thing was that it's not about the wattage, it's about the system, and how your system is matched. Your radio is running perfectly, you got the right cable, you got the right antenna. Those first 5 watts, back then it was 5 on the CB, are the most important that you'll use for various reasons. One will be, of course, to fire up the kicker. The other would be that when you look at how it works, perfectly right. You can add another 5 watts, make it 10, 12, 15. Yeah, you're going to really notice it. But after you get above 100 or a certain mark, everybody's a little different, I want to say. The results are very minimal. If you're talking about a one mark on a meter, a meter, come on, that's nothing. And you're talking about a kilowatt you're running to get that? No. So how useful is that? Well, I don't know. If you're trying to burn a hole through a mountain to talk to somebody, probably works pretty good. Probably doesn't work much better than 100 watts. So, yeah, there's something to it. If I can just turn it into a different story, an allegory. If I had a Roadrunner, let's say, oh yeah, I do, whatever. Anyway, if I had a Roadrunner, a 68 Roadrunner, and it would do, say, 125 miles an hour on the roadway, okay, that's fast. Do your math. This is all about math. So 125 miles an hour, and then I sent it to somebody that worked on cars, and they could make it do over 160 miles an hour. And that was done. The only thing was that the potential was even there for even more. Maybe 190. Okay, 180. The only problem was, when you got to about 130, the actual car would drift. And of course, if you want to keep pushing on the gas pedal, you were dead. Graveyard dead. And there's no other way to say it. That's me. So there you go. How far can you push something? Yeah, you can make it do that and run that and put a big motor in it. But can you make all the other parts work? You can only go so far, and it just becomes nothing. If you're dreaming of getting 2-3 kilowatt station, dream on. You're good for the economy. Now, if I'm insulting, I can be sometimes, but I'm just trying to be a realist here about everything. So, let's say that you're interested in making 100 watts. That you would want something. Let me just jump in there, see if we can get that in focus. Okay, there we go. And something that a 203, a KL203. Well, remember, you're going to have to make about 10, 12 amps to really get that to run right. And you're only going to put so much power into that. Especially the smaller these things get, and you start driving on them. And let's say, I'll put 4 watts into it because that's what the radio will do. And then you've added a power mic. You've got audio now. All this stuff starts to have an effect when it hits that box. And your audio, you'll hear me say over and over again, your audio is more important. The audio that's going into these boxes, these kickers, is the important thing for me. It's either going to make or break you. And it can break you and blow the amp because it's excessive audio. I can show you on the meters here. I have to be careful with that kind of watt. So if you're running something to get the full effect out of it, you know what? Notch it down. It'll last you forever. But if you stay and say, I'm going to run it full bore, you'll find out. You'll find out. So I've been very lucky with my amps. So the audio is what's going to really get these kickers to work, in my opinion, on sideband. But again, you're going to have to produce, um, you're going to have power supply. Now, that's just 100 watts. Now, remember, if you're now running your radio, and whatever that's going to take, amps, I'm sorry. So if you're running, 10, 12 amps, and you also have to be able to produce what your radio needs. And if you're running any of your meters off of that system, everything is a draw. So I have two power supplies, and I don't have big power supplies. I don't need them. I have a 50 amp over on the right side, over here if you can see. And then on the far left, I have a 1992-93 Pyramid, which rated 23 amps. I did a little work on it years ago, and probably runs 27 now. But that's not enough to run the 503. So that Pyramid is not going to run it right, because that's going to need 30-something amps. So this is all math, okay? And you need to do the math and figure out what you're getting into. Go ahead and buy a 1 kilowatt a kicker. Go ahead, yeah. And then, does anybody here know how many amps that's going to take to run? Okay. Plus, you got to be able to generate enough power into that amp to get it to kick and turn on and do what it's meant to do. So we have to be conscious of a lot of different things here going on. But how many amps is something like that going to take? Well, the math sometimes brings me around 115 to 130. How's that for a rough estimate? That's a lot of amps. A lot of houses that are still floating around have 100 amp service. So, okay, yeah. So just to give you an idea what you're drawing on, and that power converter that's going to jump you over to the voltage you need, you better take a good look at the cost of them and see what that's going to cost you, because that might be costing you almost what the kicker cost. Now you got to remember your meters. You're going to have to be able to handle the meters. Okay, they're going to have to handle that power that you're running now at the at the end. They're going to have to, let's say, feel that kilowatt or feel that whatever it's going to be. So everything changes. You're going to have heavier cable. Even at 100 watts, you're going to have the heavier cable, in my opinion. What in the States I would just call RGU8. And it's going to have to be, that cable's going to have to be a little more precisely tuned, I would think. Or you're going to really have to think about the length and get it as close as you can to the operating length where you're going to get the best SWR. Now your antenna's also going to have that. And if you're running a kilowatt or even 100 watts and you're around the buildings and you're encased, there's going to be effects that are going to occur, and you're going to anything and everything is possible, and it's like Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it will happen. So these are some things I've been I just wanted to share with you. Whoop, had to grab my hat, almost lost it. So I wanted to share and talk about some of these issues with you. I want to again state that, in my opinion, if you can't do it on 100 whiskeys, 150 whiskeys, something like that, whatever it is, and you think that you're going to do it on 1,000 or a 2K or 3K, you might do it, but I still might do it better here. And I don't have a tower, right? So you use the conditions that you got and you adjust to them. And if you get lucky, you're lucky. And if you're unlucky, you're definitely, it's not working for you. There's lots of things to do, but do not go out and just start buying this stuff, especially buying an amp and then realizing, holy crap, now I gotta be able to produce power for this thing, and you plug in the whole community, you can see it. Well, lights on the street dim, like an electrocution, that same thing. Prison, I mean, that's what it comes down to. So what are you really getting at? You spend a lot more money. And if you've been watching me for the past, I don't know, what's it, three years we've been on the tube now again, and we've been on Facebook, and Glen's been on forever. But you really see that. Let me say, if you've watched these, you've seen me numerous times turn on the wrong amp and think I actually had an amp on it. I didn't, and I was running 12 watts single sideband. That's it, PEP. Off the Radio Shack 490 or some of these other things that might be running 10, 12. So I'm a teetotaler, I admit it. But people were talking to me. I was talking back and forth in the UK. There's videos. There's proof. There's no gadgets. We're not tricking you. I know years ago that was always the game was, well, that walkie-talkie's running good, or they got a wire, or they got a phone hookup, or they're hitting a satellite. They figured something else out. And it's none of that, of course. It has nothing to do with any of that, of course. This is just straight radio 11 meters and doing that. So I want you to think about those things before you involve yourself. And remember, what's the number one rule? Don't buy used amps ever, never, ever, even from your best friend. Because if you keep doing it, you won't have a best friend. Amps are a hand grenade with the pin pulled. It's like an older radio when you buy it. You just don't know where it's been. You don't know how much longer it's got. You're better off to save your money and buy something more new, easier to run, more set to run with today's radios. And then again, the other thing I wanted to point out is that you'll see, if you're new to it, you'll see HD on some of the amps, and I have a 503 HD, and that's high drive, right? And so that means that for me to run that at full potential, I need to develop about 8, 9, 10 watts on AM, do the conversion, and just figure 27 to 32 or 33 on in PEP, depends. And then that will run at 9 very well. It'll give you what it's got. Let's say that's 200, but it's a teeny bit more. You have to have that figured in. That's a high drive, so that's fine. But when I get over to the older radios and they're set at 4 or 5 watts, 5-watt radios that might be at 6 or something like that, they will jump it and get it to run. And it runs pretty good because I've got audio behind it. And it actually surprises me sometimes. But some of the older radios will only, that are 4 watts output, will only punch that and give you 60 or 70. And I'm still getting contacts, okay? Alright, so this is not, again, this is about more than just power. It's there's so much more to it. Power complicates your issues, and the least you use, the best you be. And I'll let that video go as such. I'm gonna make a few more videos, shorter ones on a few of the little amps, but again, don't get your hopes up, because you probably got more than I've got for sure. And I call it the Tinker Toys, my amps. So talk to you later, guys.
Little bit of European skip coming in this morning. That was a French station there, but we've had Icelandic stations as well as Italians. So yeah, looks like it's going to be a decent day for the skip. Let's hope it runs across the pond. Right. Now then, what was it Mr. Gandalf was just waffling on about? Oh, that's right, linear amplifiers. Yeah, I guess we all know what those things are. Toasters, boots. Yeah. Right, let's crack on. Oh yeah, by the way guys, I've removed the Striker Mark II and I now have my Striker Mark 1 back from Irish Custom Radios. So thank you, Mr. George. So I've swapped out the radio and put the Mark 1 in the Mark 2's place. So really happy about that, because it's the radio I've used for the past 3 years, talking across the pond. Anyway, where was we? Oh, right, linear amplifiers. Yeah. Okay, guys, let's get into it. Hi, guys. Right, so shortly I'm going to be coming onto an illustration I want to show you about power. It's a chart, a table chart that shows you basically how many S points you're generating when running power. So my camera just refuses to focus. I must have taken it off fixed focus at some point, but you'll have to excuse it for that. Sometimes it may drop out of focus, but it should quickly go back. Right, so something that Drew didn't actually mention on his little talkie there was one of these things here. And this is a low pass filter. And what these do is they cut down on interference, such as like television interference, or maybe some type of interference that could be caused via the Wi-Fi system. I do know that when some people kill, it cuts their Wi-Fi out. I don't have that issue. Not because I use one of these, because I just don't have that issue anyway. But these low pass filters will also make the linear amplifiers run cleaner. So you put out a much smoother, better, clearer signal. So I run these on the back of all of my linears, all of them. And I've got some of these low pass filters that will just do like 20 watts and 50 watts. But for some of the amplifiers that I use, they have to be a decent size low pass filter. And as you can see, this one will do up to a kilowatt PEP. So yeah, these are quite essential if you want to keep your signal clean and also reduce unwanted interference. Right, now then, let's get on to radios and linear amplifiers. So guys, I'm going to go down the same route as Drew this year. So what I've generally done over the past few years is I've been swapping in and out radios, to put different linears onto them. I mainly only normally use one or two. I have a big linear, and then one similar to the one that Drew's got there, the iDrive one. But I've pulled off my rack my other linears for this year, so I'm going to be running certain radios that I've got here on the bench into its own linear. And the reason for that is it's so I'm not having to constantly recalibrate radios when I'm pulling them in and out. So I can leave them in situ, and then all I have to do on the meter is to check the SWR and the power level, and just make sure that everything's running nice and smooth. So certain radios will have their own designated linear amplifier. Now this is where things get expensive. So what we have here is a RM Italy 400, and my Craig AM radio will be using this this particular amp. The Craig's on about 5 watts, so it'll probably only draw about 150 out of this, but this amplifier here is definitely capable of throwing out about 180 watts, 180 watts. And then if I just take this one out of the way here, I'll show you what's underneath it. Right, just move that out of the way. So just underneath that we've got this one, which is a RM Italy KL505V, and the V standing for for ventilated. So there we have the 505. Now I do have two of these linears, but I thought I'd, oops, just dropped a light there if you heard that. Right, where was I? Yeah, I've got two of these linears. I've never used this one before, so I'm going to give it a test run. And the radio that I'm going to be putting this one to is going to be the President George. So thing is, with a lot of these iPower export models is people turn them up and tend to blow out the outputs, and it can be a very expensive game. So it's always better, you know, if you want to put a bit more power out there, is to let the linears do the heavy lifting. But where the heavy lifting is concerned, I'm going to mention that again shortly. So instead of winding the radio up and burning out the outputs, it's always better to, you know, feed it at a low wattage into an amplifier and let the amp do all the heavy lifting. So for my DX10, that radio can put out up to 100 watts, but the thing is, I don't like running radios at full bore. You know, many people do. I just don't like doing that. So on the DX10 and on the Yaesu 450D there at the back top right, I'm going to be putting separate linears onto those two, and then I'm going to have a floating linear for the other radios. So the DX10 will have one of these, which is a RM Italy 703. This is supposed to be a 500 watt linear, but it's just, as Drew's explained, it's pointless trying to thrash these things. So as you can see, mine's always set to low, and you know, if I do need any more power for whatever reason, come on guy, focus, there we go, I can always turn it up, but you know, that's few and far between. So yeah, these are twin fans on these things, and then, as I say, I'm not going to be running the DX10 and the FT450D off of this one linear. As I say, they're going to have their own designated linears. So just down here we have a second 703 linear, which is in its box. So I've got some wiring up to do shortly, and then for the other radios, I did say to you that I was going to use a floating linear that I can just, you know, calibrate the radios and then just feed it into one. And I've got two 6-way switcher boxes that's screwed underneath the lid of my bench that I can wire all this lot through. So the floating linear that I'm going to be using is another 703, and these linears are very, very reliable if you don't push them too much. No one's going to see the difference on the, you know, on the signal meter between, you know, 200 and 450, 500 whiskies. No one's really ever going to see the difference, and I'll come on to the reason why a little bit later when I show you an illustration. So right, to run this this lot, I've got a stack of 60 amp power supplies. So each linear will also, you can see that, that's a 30 amp, and then I've got I've actually got four 60 amp power supplies, as you can see there, and these actually only just about capable of running these at full bore. So when Drew's talking about how much power in amps you need for linears, he wasn't he wasn't kidding, he wasn't joking. So underneath the bench, obviously, for all this lot here that I've got on here, I've got a stack. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a stack of power supplies underneath there. Mixed between 30 amp, 50 amp and 60 amp. So I do, and I do run other gear such as lighting and cameras and all manner of things for streaming from those power supplies as well as about a dozen USB ports for charging stuff up with. So yeah, and also like meters like that one there, the big one on top of the DX10, that's a powered meter. So you can plug that in, it all lights up, and that's actually a real large meter, that is. So yeah, there's stuff like that too that also takes up a power source from the actual power supplies. But yeah guys, so just letting you know what I'm doing this year on my bench anyway. So as I say, we have the 505V, the 703, and its brothers and sister down here too, and also a stack of power supplies to run it all. So I'm gonna have to get busy doing that and sorting it out. So what I'm going to be doing now guys is just put up a little illustration and explain a few things to you about power and how much you really need to use to make a difference on the signal meter when you're talking to other people. But again guys, always remember that your signal meter readings are all relative, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in 2 ticks. Right guys, I've got the Striker Mark 1 back in its place on the bench. I just want to show you something as regards to output power with the linear that I'm using, which is one of these 703 linears, 500 watt linear. By the way, you're living in cloud cuckoo land if you think you're going to wrench 500 watts out of one of those things. Right, so I've got this Striker set up on 15 watts output, so you can see the power meter there. Look, audio check, audio check, audio check. So I'm not really going any more there. You can see I'm peaking. Look, audio, 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 and the meter audio, 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 audio is about 15 watts, which is about bang on. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that 15 watts into this this linear. So we'll just go again with that. Check one, check one, check one, check one. 15 whiskies into a 703. Right, let's just flick this switch over here. So we've got it on high reading, and we're going to put the 15 watts into the 703. So if we can get them both in. Check audio, check audio, check audio. Hang on, I've done something wrong. What have I done wrong? Oh yeah, I see. I've not switched the linear on, have I? Oh, okay, the linear's on now. Look, see the green light there? Yeah, we all make these stupid mistakes. Right, so check audio, check audio, check audio, and there you have it. Look, about 4 watts of reflection. SWR about a 1-2 point something, negligible, but 406 whiskies. That 406, take the reference off of 4 watts return, and the linear is probably kicking out about 402 whiskies. So that's about right. A lot of people try to rinse these rinse these 703s by putting every watt they can into them, but you only need about 15 watts to get about the maximum out of the linear. It's not going to do much more than 400 watts, and anyone else that's ever used a 703 will tell you the same. If you can put 30-35 watts into one of those 703s, and you're still only going to get around 400 whiskies out of it. So what you're basically doing by putting more wattage into the 703 is you're basically frying your output transistors that are in the linear, and it's not going to last 5 minutes. You only need 15 watts. Your voice may peak at a little more than that, maybe 16, 17, but the proof's here. 15 watts from the striker into the 703 produces round about 400 watts. Check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio. There you have it, guys. 15 watts into a 703. There's a 703, look, keyed up. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio. So there you have it, guys. So yeah, no one's going to see the difference either, guys, between 100, 150 to 400 watts on a signal meter at the other end. You might get a couple of needles widths, and your voice might be a bit louder. But to make a massive difference, with power, it takes an awful lot of wattage, and the chart in this video will explain that to you. So yeah, I'm just saying, guys, when you run these linears, because it says 500 watts on the box, doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're going to get 500 watts out of it, because it's just not going to work that way. Audio check, audio check. Check, check, check audio, check, check, check audio, check, check, check audio, check audio. Yeah, so, you don't need to put, 30-35 watts into one of these. If you did, you'd still only get 400 or thereabout watts. And, no one's going to notice the difference between a small amount of wattage or even a large amount of wattage when, you're talking to somebody 5,000 kilometers away. And this is like a big misconception in radio, where people think that, a big linear, gives you a great whopping signal. It doesn't do that. It really doesn't. All signals are relative. That's what you've got to understand about radio signals on your meter. They're all relative. And if you don't understand what relative means, you need to research it. And, it's a big subject. It is a really big subject when you say to somebody, all signals are relative. It needs to be researched by by stations out there, so they understand how power works and how signals work on a signal meter. So, you know, as I say, 15 watts from the striker into the 703 will give you 400. You can put 35 watts from the striker into the 703 and you're still only going to get 400. All those extra watts that you're putting in there, that extra 10-15 watts that you're putting into the 703, all it's doing is frying your outputs. You'd be silly to spend a lot of money on one of these linears, you know, to to have it blow up on you, because you're just overfeeding it. So check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio. There you go, guys. 406 watts. Like I say, I could up this striker to 30 watts and 35 watts even, and the linear will still give you the same amount of wattage. Don't be fooled by what people tell you. This is I'm showing you exactly how it works right here. So you can either listen to your mate that's been in radio for a little over 2 months and knows everything, or you can actually take it from somebody that's had 48 years experience on the radio. And I'm telling you now, you don't need to feed these linears at maximum input wattage to get the same out. So 15 watts in, and it'll run your linear sweet as sweet can be. Okay guys, on with the video.
Well, hello everybody. Yeah, I wanted to share this quick too. Now, what you're seeing in the lens there, probably blurry, is a Texas Star 100 linear amplifier. This will produce 100 watts if you put 4 into it. 4 watts. I'm talking AM now, okay? And you do the conversions for sideband or whatever, or FM. Okay, so it's a Texas Star 100, and it makes 100 watts using 4 watts in from any radio. That's, what I'm saying. You can run 5 watts into this and run the old radios, and you'll get about 110, 115, and it doesn't damage the amp. And I've done it. And I've run this, you go back in some of the videos, especially the first year or so, I ran this amp a lot. So that's what I put in. Now, can you buy one of them new? No. I bought it in 1992, I figure. Yeah. And it's still running. It works perfect. Jumps the pond, gets the skip going. Oh yeah. So, ask yourself why I still have that. Okay? Because I don't push it. And 5 watts is, again, it can handle it. It's made for a 4 or 5 watt radio. On the other side of it, you probably get down to 3 watts and you might see a little difference. It dropped below 100. But other than that, it's been solid and it works great. And so that's what I'm putting into this unit right here. Texas Star 100. I would never sell this. I would never expect anybody to buy this used amp from me. Wanted to show you here. It's a very interesting thing. My little 503 amplifier. It's a RM, says Italy. This is a high drive 503. High drive. Okay, so high drive, what does it mean? This amp should produce at about 8 or 9 watts, 200 watts, I would figure. It will run as high as 225 if you push your wattage, your incoming wattage up around 10, 11. So there's not much difference at all. The amp seems to be driven very well by the audio, if the audio is great. Again, this is a 503 high drive. So what's high drive? Well, it's going to need more than your 4 watts coming out of your radio, or 5 watts, whatever you got. It no matter how much you put into it, over a certain point, you're not going to get anything that I consider substantial or even worth jeopardizing the linear. So it's a fantastic linear. It can produce up about 225. Now we're talking AM, and again I'm talking putting anywhere from 8 to 10 watts into it on AM. So it's going to take that little extra to get it to perform. On a radio that's 5 watts, these are 5 actually, they're older. So is yeah, and so I can go around and point to things that run 5 watts. It will give you about 100 watts, 110 watts on AM. That's it. So a 4-watt radio is barely cresting, 100, but it will work. I mean, there's no denying it. And if the audio is correct, you can get that and use it on those radios, but you're not going to get full potential. And you're not going to get anything extra by running over, in my opinion, 12 watts to 10 to 12 watts. Anything over that, forget it. And it will work at 8 or 9 perfectly. So I've had this for quite a while now. I really do like it. I got a good deal on it. I bought it brand new, of course. And that's why it's still around. As you see, I don't run these big kicking amps. Now, I will say this on it. On FM and AM, when you're running it, it will get warm. So I've never seen it get warm enough where I thought it needed a fan. I just wanted to add that. It's a good amp. It's a very good amp. And it doesn't take but 35 actual amps of, voltage to DC voltage to make it run perfectly. So it's not a big guzzler either on that. Now we're in the corner. I'll get it out here pretty soon. There's the Thunderbolt 101. And you can see it at the very bottom there under those 2 speakers. It runs fine. It's got 2 tubes, big tubes in it. It produces 100 watts. So you can, and 50. It's got, that ability of low and high power. Well, that's not a lot, but it's a superior run when the sound that comes out of it and the steadiness of the power plugs into the wall current, household current, right? So that's what 110, 120 will say in the States. So it's a great radio. So what do you put into that to get that to the 4 watts? You can put 6 in it. You can put 10 in it. It won't blow it. Over that, I wouldn't do it, but you're not getting anything out of it. It's amazing. It's set. That's it. You're going to get 100 watts. So first thing you learn there is, well, I'm going to put 4 watts into that, and that's basically what I do. So, yeah, as far as all the old radios that you might see, if I'm using that, it's wonderful. I have a 305. Looks identical, but it's 300 watts on AM. Again, I'm speaking AM. Plugs into the wall, that model too. They're great in winter months to heat the radio room for sure. And you can ask me, gee, where'd you get those? And it's, well, my great uncle bought them and never used them. They were still in a box when I got them, and he had them for 8 to 10 years before he passed away. And he was a ham radio operator, so nobody knew what they were. They were in the closet, so they were given to me and said, what are these? And I said, okay, these are such and such, such and such. And they said, well, then good, you can have them. And I was able to bring them home. And when did I bring them home? 1990. And do they still work today? Yes, they do. I haven't burnt anything out in these amps, these older ones I'm starting to show you. I have more, but we're just going to let it go with that. Again, I put 4 watts into this, and I get 100 watts out. I can get 50. This has a load and tune on it also, so, and a meter, so I've got to adjust those to get it perfect on the meter, and it'll show me right where I want to be to get the maximum out of it. Running any more will damage it, in my opinion, more than so many watts, and you will get nothing out of it extra. This is like, I don't care who you think you are, you just burn this up, and you're not going to get any, So there you go. That was made for the time. So this was made in 1982, I figure. Yeah, I know. So those are some of the amps I've been trying to just get videos on and telling you they still run. And if you look a little closer, or to the right, you will see down below a pyramid, right? Gold series power supply, which will make 15 volts, 23, 24 amps. I did a little work on it to beef it up 22, but it'll run a little. It will run hotter. You want to ask me when I bought that? Sure you do. I bought this in 1992 to run the Texas Star, which takes about 12 amps. So it's been with me that long too. You can ask me why do I still have it, and it runs so fine, and it's because I don't try to make it put out 25 amps for something. I'm conscious of what goes in, what's needed to go in, what comes out the end. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to point that out. So, could this amplifier run the RML over here? I mean the RM 503? No, not in my opinion. Not effectively. You might get away with it for a while. And remember, I'm saying a while. Okay, so those are the amps I wanted to show. Hopefully you got to see all three.